I had a chance to sit down with Jyoti Gondek, the mayor of Calgary, to figure out exactly why this is the heart of this campaign. This city is the heart of this campaign. Have a listen to our conversation. Hi, Mayor. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
I really appreciate you making the time. I have to start off by asking, what makes Calgary so much less predictable than the rest of the province in this election?
I'm not sure what it is. I think one of the things is that there's an expectation that Calgary always votes in a particular way. And I think people have learned that Calgary is actually a pretty diverse place. And there's a lot of things that have happened in the last few years where we've seen some deficits in infrastructure funding, and we have seen an incredible amount of growth in our city. So the demands on our city right now are pretty high, and I think that's what makes this election so incredibly important.
Calgary in and of itself, though, demographically is so interesting because for years, like as you point out, federally, they consistently, the city consistently votes for the Conservatives, but they've elected two very progressive mayors. So I feel like that, the makeup of the city is maybe not what people living outside of it think it is. Would that be fair?
I think when you consider that Calgary is the third most diverse city in the country, and most people don't know that, it is a fair statement. I don't know that people who haven't come to Calgary can fully appreciate it. And once you're here and you look around and you interact with people and you see what types of businesses we have here, it's pretty evident that not only is our population diverse, but so is our economy. And I think we've been very good as a province in ensuring that we've kept partisanship out of local municipal politics. And that's why, it's been sometimes unpredictable on a municipal level as well, who is going to take the seat of a council member or the mayor.
So when you mentioned infrastructure deficit, what are if you were to anticipate as a Calgarian, those who go into the ballot box today, what are the top three issues for them, top of mind as they cast their ballot, do you think?
So we've had conversations with Calgarians. We've done a little bit of a survey as well. I can tell you that when it comes to specifically municipal issues, they're incredibly focused on making sure we have housing, that we have a strong and predictable transit system, and that we are investing in growth in downtown and making significant contributions to economic revitalization. Outside of that, there's people that are also concerned about making sure that we have enough schools, that we have a proper healthcare system, and that really we are focused on a forward-thinking approach to economic success.
Is there in your mind then, and I know you're not going to obviously endorse any candidate, but is there a set of policies, for example, proposed by either candidate that hits to the core of some of what you just described?
I would say that both parties have been clear that they're interested in making investments into downtown Calgary. They're proposing it in different ways. We have also heard different approaches to public safety. We've heard different approaches to transportation and transit. So really, they have spoken to the issues that we're talking about. They just have different ways of going about how they're going to benefit Calgary.
Is there anything that happened during this campaign? And I know you interviewed both of them individually right before it started, I believe. Or is there anything that happened during this campaign that took you by surprise?
I would say that there were surprises on a regular basis. I would also say that there was consistency. So it is a very strange election indeed where, surprises come at you on a regular basis. But the messaging seems to have remained consistent from both sides.
This is also a city that is home to kind of the corporate headquarters of much of the resource sector. And that is often a point of tension between the federal government and whichever provincial government is in charge. I actually, from doing interviews on the outside, don't see a huge difference in policies between the two parties. It's not massive. It's maybe less massive than each of the sides likes to say. What is your impression of the way in which whomever forms government will lead the resource sector? Do you see that much of a difference in approach?
I would say that the most significant thing that we would like all orders of government to be focused on is that Calgary is a hub for energy transformation. We have long been leaders in oil and gas. We transitioned from just oil and gas to renewables as well. We are focusing on carbon capture and reducing emissions. The entire energy sector is working hard to get to net zero. And what I would ask from our federal counterparts is that they come and engage with us more often so that when they are setting the standards, they understand understand what is feasible and how far we've come. I would ask the same thing from the province to make sure that we are all actually having a good, proper dialogue as three orders of government, listening to the sector to figure out how we practice this incredible transformation together. This is not a time to be at odds. We have to be moving together.
They do seem at odds, though. There is a juxtaposition between what the federal government is proposing in a hard emissions cap that likely means production cuts, and what both Rachel Notley and Danielle Smith are saying should not happen. They don't want either of those things to happen. Essentially, Rachel Notley is more okay with a cap, let's say, on emissions, but unequivocally says not a production cap. Do you see any room for compromise on that when the values are kind of ingrained on either side?
I would say that as a city, we are the closest to the sector, and we understand what they are capable of and how forthright they are in their desire to reduce emissions and really get to a new energy future. The province sees that as well. We are all local. We understand what's happening here. I would say the federal government is a little bit far removed from this, and they need to be engaging with us a lot more regularly than they do. So I think you've got a very strong message coming from Calgary and Alberta to the federal government that more engagement is needed to set appropriate targets.
What kind of engagement is there right now? Like, how often is the federal government tapping into your expertise to figure out where the sentiment is within the industry?
I would say it's time to time, but it needs to be more regular. We need to ensure that we are having roundtables that consist of leaders in the sector, people that are working in the tech sector to ensure that we are getting to that transformational place, and provincial and local government leaders. That's the engagement we are seeking from the feds.
People who are advocating for more stringent actions to mitigate the effects of climate change talk, though, about how these companies are making a lot of money right now. In fact, record profits last year compared to the year before. Why is, for example, something that both the party leaders support, more money for carbon capture, more federal tax money for carbon capture? Why is something like that something people outside of Alberta should consider from your viewpoint?
I don't think we've been telling the story of Calgary well enough, and I don't think we've been telling the story of the sector well enough either. I can tell you that Western Canada produced 98% of renewables power in the last year, and no one knows that. And Calgary and Alberta were largely responsible for that. So we are, in fact, leading the country when it comes to renewables, but there's not a lot of conversation around that. And when it comes to transforming an industry, it is people within the industry partnering with other leaders and other experts in technology that is going to get us to the place that we need to be. So you can't just dictate to the group that understands how production works. You need to work with them to ensure that you're getting this right.
Okay, Mayor, I'll leave it there. Predictions for tonight?
Absolutely no predictions.
Safe bet. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.